Hello, everybody. Welcome into debate night. We are back yet again. You got a great show today. Some thought-provoking topics, hopefully some maybe some heated debate, and some great guests as well. Brodie Smith, man of the people, back with us.
We're back. We're back, man of the people. I was able to go through and look at the comments from last week, which was a great show. People really loved the show. A couple things of note here. People love Hannah. Even if they can't spell her name correctly, a lot of people spelling her name wrong. People are loving Hannah. I think also her getting her microphone fixed, I think is a big plus, because that was like the only thing that people were really not liking about it. Someone said Brodie's hot take to 1-round matches in disc golf is to get his bud Yuli a win. We all know it. Could be exciting. And then Mike's argument for ABBA with cut after 2 rounds won me over. I think the ABBA also, when he was explaining it too, like I never really thought about that. And I was like, that might be one of the top 10 best things brought up on the show.
Wow.
Which I don't know if that's saying a lot.
What are the other
I was going to say, I mean, I don't know what that list would entail, but some nonsense for sure.
I just know when he was saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
All right.
I've never thought about this.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was a good idea. I liked it. Hunter.
I got it. Yeah. The ABBA, I had never thought of either. I still, every time I hear it, just think it's some type of amateur basketball association.
I just think it's a band.
Yeah. Mamma Mia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, ABBA. Yeah. ABBA. Yeah. All the same. But you know, it is a good idea nonetheless. ABBA, the future of the sport.
Yeah. Moses is back on the show today, joining us remotely, even more remotely than normal.
Yeah, live and live from South Beach right now. Took my talents down to Miami.
Heat culture.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of construction going on down there right
now. Do the Panthers, are they playing out of Miami? Are you like in the thick of it right now?
I'm in Miami Beach.
Okay. So, I have no idea where the Florida Panthers play, to be clear. Not a clue.
Don't know where I am. Don't know where they are.
I don't think.
I feel like they're like Tampa, aren't they?
No,
there's a team in Tampa.
The Lightning.
Oh, that shows what I know.
Who knows? Like,
are they Orlando? Are they Orlando?
No,
Sunrise, Florida.
Sunrise.
That's close to Miami. That's outside of Miami.
Okay, I thought they were in the Miami area.
Right, Hunter? Double check.
Why are you asking me? I'll double check.
Well, I mean, you're clearly finding information.
He's a
Sunrise. It's an hour outside of Miami.
All right. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I think. Man, I'm trying to remember. This is so off topic, but I'm trying to remember if they ever went by the Miami Panthers or thought of rebranding to that.
No, because I had a Sega hockey game that I used to play with my brother growing up, and they were always the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, maybe it was just talks. Anyways, Jake is back with us as well. Excited to have him.
I am, yeah. Am I the only one who, when you said ABBA, was thinking Anthony Barella, Banthony Orella? You brought up the band, or like,
maybe the only person in the world.
Cool. That's why I don't do so well on this show and the points. My mind just does not work the same as everyone else's. I got to lock into the Dylan Cease video game cover was obviously first. My idea
that would be number one on the list of things brought up on the show.
Look, it works different. It's not always better, but
he was hoping people would think it was MLB the show. All right, let's get into our first topic.
I forgot about that. That was so good.
So more disc golf in Europe. We had the All-A Open. Kind of an interesting finish to that event with Ricky Wysocki losing that tournament to Nicholas Antela. So as we get further into the season, I want to know, is it time to sound the alarm bells for Ricky Wysocki after coming up short yet again? Why or why not? He hasn't necessarily been bad this season, but has not reached the top of the podium. Brodie, what do you think?
Well, first I want to say pronunciation is like a huge thing, because if you just call it the Ale Open, it's kind of like lame, but you call it the Ollie Open, it sounds a lot more sophisticated and nice. But looking at Ricky, I went back and looked to see kind of what his seasons looked like so far. He's only finished outside the top 10 twice. That was at Waco and Music City. So he's been playing pretty consistent, similar to what we have seen Ricky literally his entire career. The guy's just a really consistent top player. He did hold a 2-shot lead going into the final 7 holes. And with a couple holes like hole 18 kind of being an easy birdie, I think there was one or two other holes down that stretch that were kind of an easy birdie as well. He had a couple errant shots, and ultimately, I mean, it kind of sucks now going back. I'm sure he was probably a little upset that he was trying to make that final shot on 18 because, you know, Nicklaus ended up going OB, and then he could have, you know, gotten a little bit closer potentially had he has played for birdie there. But yeah, I mean, he has missed a couple of shots coming down the wire. Now, looking at it, I mean, he's just right now getting beat by people that are playing better than him, right? And then I went back even the last couple of years because I wanted to see, like, is this a trend? Last year, he won 3 events. Two of those 3 events were limited field events in Europe. The year before that, he won 3 events. 2 of those events were also limited field events. It is just very hard. I've said this many, many times. It is just extremely hard to win on tour. And especially when you're in an era now where you have guys like Nicklaus, who is becoming a top pro, top player, maybe number 2, I would say right now behind Gannon. It's just, there's not a lot of tournaments out there to win. And I'm sure he had this one circled as the tournament to go over and take it down. And if you look at his face when Nicklaus is tapping out, you can see it right there that he felt like he let one get away.
Certainly. Hunter, do you think letting it get away is a reason for concern?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think that what we're falling victim to here is the expected performance from Ricky Wysocki, right? It's what him and Paul have kind of backed themselves into, where if they don't win for a certain period of time, it feels like a failure because that's just, we are so used to them winning. But in all actuality, the guy's the 3rd best player in the world in relation to the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. And while, yes, it was a pretty bad way to lose, I think. I mean, he had full control after 7 holes. After hole 9, he still was up by 1 and showed some promise. And then again, hole 18, that putt is one that we typically expect Ricky to make. So is it a time to sound alarms for him, you know, in clutch time? Maybe, but the dude still came in 2nd. He still has multiple podiums this year. I think that it's more just the way he's losing is not what we expect out of Ricky, because we're so used to seeing Ricky in circle 2, draining these long putts, running them in. And really, it seems like all that's wrong with Rick right now is his putter's a little off. So if that's actually true, then I don't think it's necessarily time to sound the alarm bells, because like if that gets fixed, he's right back in this thing. So it might be time to sound the alarm bells for the field, because it's like, dang, Ricky's putter's a little off and he's still the 3rd best player in the world right now. What happens if his putter gets PDGA approved? He stops putting with the focus, and next thing you know, he's draining them from all over the place. The dude's a killer. So maybe it's time to sound the alarm bells the other way. I don't know.
Okay. Moses, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a slight cause for alarm, but maybe not for some of the reasons people are thinking about. With the LA Open, I mean, he was beat by Nicklaus, which is 5th best player in the world. A player who's beaten him 4 out of the 7 events this season. Makes sense. And Ricky is still the 3rd best player in the world by those standings. I think one thing to talk about is his putter. A lot was talked about and Grip Locked about that. For starters, he's using AB's Swirl Focus. He's not using the signature putter that he has made with Discraft. And Trevor, you made the comment of maybe there's some dissatisfaction over what was manufactured. So when talking about that in the context of his putting, he's still 8th in the world in C1 and 7th in C2, down a few spots from 2024. So there's some slight struggles there, maybe having to do with some of the putter issues that he's faced. His throwing stats have decreased ever so slightly, leaving him in a slight area where I don't necessarily think he's throwing awful, but there is decrease, and there is decrease in his putting as well. To me, what the major things that are ring alarm bells is what part of the season he's struggling in. The Texas swing for years was something that he dominated, and this whole part of the season, really, that early season part, and then Paul was kind of later in the season when there was just them two. So to see him kind of struggle throughout that and not pick up a win is kind of alarming to me. That, and he didn't struggle this much when he switched manufacturers back in 2022 when he joined Dynamic. He won 4 Elite Series and the Tour Championship that year, and we just haven't seen out of him. I do think he's going to pick up a issues, though.
Yeah, there's certainly still time in the season. It remains to be seen what will happen there. Jake, do you think that this bad start, or bad maybe to his standard start, causes concern, or is it too soon to tell?
I think it's too soon to tell. I do think that the switch to Discraft and the conversation about putters is playing somewhat of a role because, like we were just talking about, you give him a couple of strokes back on just some putts where maybe he's not feeling as comfortable with his putter, and he's right back in this thing, either tied for the lead at the end or taking the lead, taking the wins on a few of these events. He's a top 3 player. He's been in the top 5 through most of these events with a couple of outliers, which I think is really just to be expected for let's face it, an older player who's dominant, but facing down some really young talent where it's going to be tough to beat them. The thing about Ricky too to remember is that, Moses, you talked about 2022 and 2023. He had a pretty slow start as well, where he finished outside the top 5 throughout the first few events and really exploded back in the second half. Yes, he does very well on the Texas swing, but he also finishes off his season pretty strong. I mean, he's won PDGA Tour Championship a couple of times now. Still hasn't won any majors though, and I think that's still the biggest cause for alarm is if he can't pick it up for major season, whether it's because of the discs, because of his putt, whatever it might be, that's the biggest cause for alarm. This might be his last season or 2 before everyone else starts catching up to really be in the talks of top 3, if not wins for majors. That's where the alarm bells are for me, is can he finally just get a major? And it just happened.
Yeah, certainly going to be. Go ahead, Brodie.
Were people saying that he played well in 2022? I couldn't. Is that what your guys' point was, that he played well?
Yeah, I mean, he picked up
winning 5 times.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And switching to a new manufacturer and having a brand new putter in the bag for the first time. Oh,
well,
okay.
That he was going back to an old putter, but.
Oh, so Discraft just doesn't have a putter that's good?
Not that's good, but Ricky's very particular. I mean, did you feel his proto putter? The things like, there's only one other putter on the face of the planet that feels like that, and it's the Dagger.
I've played with a lot of people.
He's not even putting with it right now. He's putting with the Focus.
I've played with a decent amount of people that are really good at disc golf at putting, and some would say you can almost put any kind of putter in their hands and they're going to putt well with it.
Some would, yeah. So, I'd fully agree. Ricky's changed his putt this year, and I think the only thing that has to do with is the focus. I mean, he's putting way more spin on it than we've ever seen Ricky do before, and the only thing that changed was the putter in his hand.
I would agree that an amazing putter is an amazing putter no matter what. But when you're at the top of the top, the margins might be 2 or 3 putts around that you missed that you would have made. Like, it's not going to look like you're an awful putter necessarily, but
no, and it's more important.
The margins are small. It can matter.
It seems more of a confidence level issue with Rick, of like, he's missing putts that he used to make in clutch moments. Because as Moses pointed out, the stats don't show some drastic fall off. It's just when those missed putts are happening are in the putts that Ricky built his whole brand on, which is chasing you down the stretch, hitting the putts he has to in clutch time, hitting the like long putts. And that's just what's missing in the final rounds this year. Is those really long clutch putts when all the pressure's on. Like that whole 18 Ale Open putt, he's never missing that in 2017, 2018.
You guys always throw out these. He's never missing these things. These guys miss these putts all the time. You just don't remember it. You remember.
I remember this one.
You just have this idea that everyone just. If Paul never misses a putt that matters and Ricky never misses a putt that matters, how is that possible? How is that literally possible?
Well, Ricky lost 2014 Worlds because he threw a forehand into a tree. So, it wasn't a putt.
My point is, though, if you watch that, Ricky makes a couple really big putts down the back nine. What really ultimately was it, and this has been Ricky's problem, I think, more than the putting, is he's too inaccurate off the tee. You have Nicholas who's hitting fairways, making easy birdies on holes when you make the drives. Ricky's spraying them a little bit, and he's not able to actually get even in the circle to have a putt for birdie. I think that's what it was down the stretch. It wasn't the putting. He made good putts. It's just when you're missing and not giving yourself that many opportunities, then obviously, those putts are going to matter more.
But I think that's been Ricky's done that a lot historically, where like that's why his putt has felt so important in the clutch, is because he gives himself so many circle 2 opportunities and then drains them and Raptor runs them in. Like, that's how he built his whole brand. But I think that it's just this year we've seen like hole 18 at Cascade, it ended up being a relevant putt, but at the moment it felt very important. 25-footer, missed it. Same thing here at the Ale Open. Like he wasn't that long of a putt.
But I don't think you're understanding my point. My point is like
I agree.
He's always done this. You go back to the season that he played the best in 2022. He got second at Belton. You're gonna tell me he didn't miss any putts there? He got second at a major Champions Cup. He didn't miss any putts there. He got second at Preserve. He didn't miss any putts there. He got third at Deglo. He didn't miss any putts there. It's just your argument. Its argument
for the
doesn't
win.
make sense.
A lot of times Ricky was like, that's what he's known for. Is like he was drain these putts to put pressure on for the win. So in that season,
I'm sure he's made a lot of big putts. I'm sure he's also missed a lot of big putts.
Yeah, and I'm just saying he's missed them all this year. All the big putts he's missed this year. Typically, he's made more than he's missed this year. He's putt for the win, putt the tie, missed. Like that's all I have to go off of this year. Whereas historically, 5 times in 2022, made. I'm gonna forget the 2 he missed.
You're right. The recent memory is taken over. Let's flip over to FPO.
I love when
here.
I get Brodie in that face right there.
There's gonna be more time to rob Brodie up.
You guys blanket statement these players that have played in hundreds of tournaments, and you're like, they've never missed a clutch putt, and it's like, what are we talking about? Yes, they have plenty of times.
Show me the compilation. I can only find the made putts.
Yeah, I guess so.
We need that small bore outlaw to come back.
Let's get some more. Flip over to FPO here. So Silva Sarden, big win, getting that Pro Tour win over Kristen Lott. So we're gonna do a little bit of a more likely scenario hypothetical here, since a lot of people are very high on Silva Sarden right now. So I want to know what's more likely: Silva Sarden wins her first major in 2025, or Missy wins a second one this season. Hunter, what do you think?
I think that when you're looking at the events that are upcoming, and the fact that they're majors, I think you have to go with Missy for a few reasons. One, obviously Kristen's not in this question, but Kristen's still a big factor. When you have the guaranteed 4th round, possibly even 5th round, I don't know if World is still doing 5 this year, but that brings Kristen into the conversation a lot more. So she becomes a bigger threat. So now you have to go, okay, which one of these is more proven against Kristen? Well, that's Missy. You also have to look at, when we're looking at the events that are going to be majors this year, who's more proven there. And if you look at last year, Missy Gannon won the European Disc Golf Festival in a playoff against Evelina. And at the European Open, she came in 3rd. She did lose to Silva there, but they both lost to Kristen. So I think that's the tough part, is when a course fits Silva's game, it also fits Kristen's game very well. And the only one that's kind of a question mark here is US Women's, which that course seems to be decently long. Looking at it, honestly, it seems to be only a little bit shorter than what they're going to be playing at the Preserve this weekend. And typically when you go with Silva on a little bit of a longer course, it takes her out of it a little bit more. So US Women's, I don't really necessarily know that Missy or Silva are going to be huge forefront threats there, but historically I got to go Missy just because she's done it. Heck, she's done it this season, and she's also done it a lot more against Kristen, who I think is the biggest factor going into the rest of the majors.
Okay, yeah, maybe the favorite in this duo. Moses, do you see it a similar way?
Nope, Hunter's wrong. This is my hot take. Anyone that disagrees is wrong. Both are going to win a major this year. Next week, U.S. Women's taking place in Wisconsin. Missy's taking it down. She's going to be defending her title. Different courses, of course. But Missy won 5 strokes over Evelina in 2nd last year and 10 strokes over Kristen. She's repeating U.S. Women's. And here's my bold prediction. Silva wins Worlds in Europe this year. Last year on the same courses, she finished in 2nd, only 1 stroke behind Kristen, and coincidentally 3 strokes over Missy in 3rd. She's improved in every major statistic from last season, ranking 3rd in C1 putting, 2nd in C2, and 2nd in birdie percentage. Overall, just a better player. And I think at this point, it's about continuing to gain experience, beating the best players in the field, which this past weekend at the All Open, she beat Kristen. And I think that is the sort of mentality, and that's what I think she's going to take into those World Championships, and she's going to win them, in my opinion. And I think that track right there specifically plays pretty similar. I mean, I think the European feel of the All Open and the World's courses together kind of are very similar. And I think Silva takes the momentum and wins Worlds in Europe. I think Missy wins U.S. Women's next weekend, and I think both will win a major this year.
Yeah, not a bad take. I mean, she certainly looked like a threat constantly this season. So the momentum and the confidence building, getting that win, beating Kristen can certainly play into the rest of her season. Jake, where do you sit on this one?
I sit more on the Missy side. I really liked that argument from Moses that they both will win, but I do think if we're looking at next up, it's just got to be Missy. It's U.S. Women's coming up next. Missy has a much longer track record just on the tour than Silva does. Silva finally looks like she hit a stride this year, which is great, but majors are a different amount of pressure. And really, it's not going to be which one of them can beat the other one. It's which one of them is going to be able to beat Kristen. As Hunter was saying before, and Silva just proved she can do it. However, Missy has a much longer track record of proving that she can do it and can stay consistent against tougher fields. Silva's only, is she 21, 22 years old? She's got a long time to really pick herself up and put her into that upper echelon of players. But I'm big on the arguments of, older players or players in their prime are much more mentally equipped to handle the pressure, to be more consistent. But I think Silva's putting herself in the direction where, maybe she'll win one later down the line. I just don't think this next one is for her based on Missy's track record in the United States, based on Kristen's maybe now desire to prove that she's better than both of them. That's really going to be a battle to watch. Is can Kristen battle her way back into this conversation of, hey, why are we talking about Missy or Silva? I'm right here. I'm still playing. That being said, I think Missy has the best chance to beat Kristen, if not next weekend, at one of the upcoming majors.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, 2 votes for Missy, 1 for Silva. Brodie, how about you?
Yeah, strange Hunter doesn't use his favorite argument in momentum when it doesn't line up with his picks here. I'm going to go with Missy, mainly just for the reason, still watching the end of that round, I still didn't get that, like, I'm better than everyone kind of vibe from Silva. I don't know. And maybe we'll never kind of get that. Maybe that's just a part of her personality. And maybe she is just going to kind of go about her way and win a bunch. But it still looked to me like Kristen wasn't playing that well down the stretch. She missed a lot of putts. She threw a lot of bad shots, quite frankly, on some holes that you got to get down the stretch. And it just seemed like if Kristen just played a little bit better, it was going to go exactly the way it happened before, with Silva missing that like 20-footer on 17. I was like, well, here we go again, right? So I'm not bought in yet. I am bought in that Silva is a top 5 player. I am bought in that I think she's going to continue to develop and continue to push the envelope in the FPO division. But I'm not bought in that's going to happen at the majors this year. The only person outside of Missy that is, or I guess the only people that I would say have the same confidence level that Missy has in her game, is Holland and Kristen. Those 3, I think, are up in here. They're confident. They believe that if they play the best, they're going to win. I don't think that's the case yet with Silva, but I also said Silva was not going to win this past weekend going into that final round. So prove me wrong once again.
Yeah, definitely a promising player. A lot of good skills. Going to be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, Holland is going to be a big one to watch as well.
I think it more likely than even that question is that Holland and Kristen win the rest of the majors.
Could be.
I think Kristen still hasn't finished outside of first and second.
You got to put Evelina potentially in that mix too, though.
I mean, sure, potentially, absolutely. I'm just saying we're picking 2 people.
We're going to a couple throwers courses coming up.
Remember how Evelina lost the disc golf festival last year?
I don't have a distinct memory. I'm assuming it was 5-footer.
Real short putt.
But do you remember how she won Worlds last year?
She never misses a putt that matters.
Remember how she won Worlds though? She was able to bring it back.
You're right. Didn't have to putt.
I just think Kristen still hasn't finished outside the top 2 so far this year.
Yeah.
She's gonna get at least 1 major this year, and then I would love to see Holland pick one up. I don't think that's unlikely. Yeah. And now there's only 1 left.
It's true.
At that point. So if that happens, Moses' argument of both is out the window. So now we're in a tough pickle.
Now we're in a tough pickle. Not a lot of room at the top in FPO right now.
Unless we count Throw Pink, then everything's back.
That is true.
No one counts Throw Pink.
Well, we do. It's a major in our hearts.
It's a major in our hearts. It will be the U.S. women's soon.
It will be.
All right. onto a spicy topic here. It's funny, age has already been mentioned a few times in this pot show so far, and I just kept glancing up at Brodie, just seeing him getting primed. All right, so we brought this up a little bit on Grip Block, but I wanted to open it up here on this show. So here we go. Though the notion of disc golf ability diminishing with age has been somewhat dismissed on the show, what are your thoughts on the change of guard that has happened in our sport so suddenly? We have Rick, Paul, Calvin, Simon, and Eagle are all between the ages of 28 and 33, which should still see them well into their athletic primes, yet they are getting crushed by players under the age of 26. Will the young guard of Gannon, AB, Niklas, Isaac, Ezra, and Kyle have more longevity, or are we set to see another young wave wipe them out before they see the age of 30? What's going on here? Is there anything to this, Moses?
Look, I know Brodie's going to come on here, talk about how Paul should be winning, Paige should be winning, longevity, whatever. Look, I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge the old guard can still win tournaments. Like, that is without a doubt, and their accomplishments are out there. But what connects a lot of those old guard players that you listed are injuries and aging over time. Something that's not unique to just those 5 players, but that's a reality for all older athletes. Father Time has affected Paul, Simon, and Eagle, all with significant injuries. Even Ricky with Lyme, that affected him pretty significantly for quite a while. And I think the clear outlier is Calvin. He's younger than a few of them, obviously, but I wouldn't consider him old guard. Only in comparison to teenagers is he really old, especially, he's been playing for quite a while. And I don't wish any injury on them, of course, but to say that Gannon, AB, Nicholas, Isaac, Kyle, and the younger guys won't suffer some form of injury in their career is pretty unrealistic, in my opinion. I think as the tour gets longer, there's more tournaments, more stress on the body. It's going to happen inevitably. But we also have a better understanding of preventative measures and warm-ups and professional routines and everything else. So I don't think that it's going to be a non-issue in the future. I think that we may see it less, but it also depends on the way that the sport grows. I mean, at the same time, Gannon, as a teenager, was winning tournaments, eating McDonald's chicken fingers and French fries after he played, and saying that he doesn't warm up for tournaments. So I don't really know, but I do think time affects all, and in 3 years there will be new young athletes that are dominating the sport.
Okay, Jake, where do you sit on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a typical changing of the guard that isn't really a full changing of the guard quite yet, which is why I think this question is interesting. We just talked about Ricky still being a top 3 player in the world. Paul's had a lot of things going on in his life outside of an injury too, starting a family and tackling other ventures as well that maybe have taken his attention from the tour. And that's bound to happen as players in any sport get older. They start to have to readjust their game and readjust their strategy, while the young players come out gunning, throwing as far as they can. The difference with disc golf is that disc golf is still a younger sport in terms of being in I'm not going to say the public's eye, but since its popularity boom a few years ago with COVID, that's when these players came to the tour as well. Now they have these resources. They're staying in nicer places. They're able to live the life that they want to and not really be too strapped for cash like some of these past generations of disc golfers were. I'm sure, Doss and Feldberg or Climo, all those people, when the new players started coming in, they said, these young guys, they're going to be going at it for years. And they were. So the main difference here, I think, is that this COVID boom really introduced a lot more resources for these younger players. I think we're going to need to make the courses a lot more difficult, or else we're just going to see these guys continue to dominate for a long time. Because this jump in skill level, I think, is unlike one that we've really seen before between 2 generations.
Okay, so Jake definitely feeling a change of guard here. Brodie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, this is a wild question. This is I don't know if that should get points for that no one's called out how wild this question. We're literally talking about these guys being old, and they're literally less than 33 years old. I think Paul's the oldest at 34. Eagle is 27 years old. What? That guy's not old at all. What are we talking about? That he's 5 years out of college. I mean, it's insane. And the fact that we're playing a sport that there is no physical contact, you're not running, you're not changing directions, you're walking with a caddy. It is one of the least demanding sports in the sense of if you start thinking about all these other sports that we're talking about. I mean, I'm getting really into running now. I'm watching this guy that's 40 years old running sub 5-minute miles in a 5K. what are we talking about here? It's crazy to me when we start going about this, let alone we just had Nate Sexton, who's actually playing in an age-protected division, just show up and say, hey, I'm going to play a tournament on tour. I haven't played all season. And oh, by the way, I'm going to get a top 10. It's baffling to me whenever this age thing comes into play. Go look up basketball back in like 1955. It just like rolled up on my thing. These guys were terrible. Holy cow. The best basketball players in the world were terrible. And this is for Yuli, I would have dunked on some of them back then. And so it's just a progress of players getting better. The ones that actually want to get better are going to do the things to get better. And the ones that don't, we don't see them on tour anymore. That's just how it is. But claiming father time, gentlemen.
It's father time mixed with injuries. That's
Get in the gym, brother. It's not hard. Get in the gym, eat right, stretch. It's really not that difficult. If you're a professional athlete, it's really not that hard.
Okay, so Hunter, if there is an age correlation, but is there something else? I mean, obviously there is a lot of those players being not phased out at all, but being shoved around by the younger guys.
I think Brodie's last sentence is exactly it, right? What we have is players who we're looking at right now that started touring when they were younger, when there was not a lot of resources in disc golf. There wasn't much, or if any, attention given to warming up or working out outside of disc golf or all of that. And what we have here is a list of players who have all dealt with injury. Calvin Heimberg had a lingering elbow injury last year. Ricky, nothing due to age. He had Lyme disease. Eagle tried throwing a 360 forehand, and he's never been the same. Simon's dealt with injury. Paul's dealt with injury. I think something actually has to be asked about what were they not doing at the young age that Gannon and them should be doing, because while father time's inevitable, I don't think they've hit it quite yet. I mean, they're all right around or slightly over the retirement age of MLB pitchers, but I don't think that's like the MLB pitchers are, I think, throwing a little bit more strenuous, in my opinion, a little bit of a heavier object too, and quite a bit more reps. So I think more what's going on is twofold. One, we have a lack of proper attention when they were younger, which we're seeing from the young generation currently. They're not correcting course there, so they could be plagued with the same injury. And twofold, we're seeing all of these players inking massive contracts. These are the guys that I think Jake actually went with the resources coming in the wrong direction. The resources went to the guys on this list. So who's to say that what we're actually seeing is people inking $1 million deal a year and saying, I've made it, I'm set, I don't have to practice the way I used to. And we're not seeing an age problem. We're seeing the guys that were the benefactors of the COVID boom problem, where they don't have to be hungry anymore. Hungry wolves run faster.
Hungry wolves run faster. You said it. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the actual phrase, but that's the one I went with.
Where did you get the stat on MLB pitcher retirement?
Googled it.
What did you Google?
What average retirement age of MLB pitchers, and a study by the Journal of Arthroscopy found 31.7.
I was saying that stat is probably more related to guys who retired because they couldn't make it in the league. Because like there are tons of pitchers who pitch into well into their 30s, but either way, valid point. I respect your dedication to that analogy.
I was just trying to think of like someone who throws hard for their career. Yeah. When do they retire? 32.
No, Justin Verlander's like 40. He's still pumping.
Also, I do want to throw it out there that
40, still pumping.
Injuries can happen to anyone as well. Obviously, certainly. You can only do so much to try to prevent them.
I mean, Gambler tore his ACL when he was like 15 or 16.
But AB's being dinged up before. I believe Nicholas has been dinged up before. Kyle for sure has missed tournaments. Like he's missed some big tournaments, has DNF from some tournaments too. So it's not just like you're young and you're not going to get injured. It can't happen to anyone.
But I think it's an important thing.
It's the preventative stuff. Exactly. Are people doing the preventative stuff to help themselves play as long as possible as well?
Because that's what we're seeing LeBron James paying off, is the dude has dedicated to the preventative stuff forever, and the dude can still play. That's what I'm more wondering. When I got into disc golf in 2015, if you warmed up, you were kind of a loser. Like if you showed up and you started stretching before your tournament, it was like, holy cow, look at this try hard. And that was the stigma that rolled into the pros. Like I would go to USDGC and Pro Tour events, and guys would get out of their car and legitimately the first throws are full power shots. like immediately. And that's what I'm wondering is, are we seeing this level of injury with this group as the tour starts throwing farther and getting more and more, be from a lack of preventative measures when they were younger?
It's no coincidence that the Pro Tour courses started getting so far so quick, and then you started seeing more injuries.
And if you're looking at this list, though, I mean, Ricky, Paul, those are two guys that I mean, outside of obviously right now, I would say Nicholas and Gannon. I like Ricky and Paul against AB, Isaac, Ezra, and Kyle this year. And then I would even throw.
That's interesting considering they haven't won. AB has.
Sure, but I'm saying just from a standpoint of like who has a chance, like I might pick those guys to win, and I'm not just all of a sudden just saying they have no chance.
You would take
of
Paul
winning.
over AB in like the next event. That's crazy take. That's a psycho take.
Give it to us and pick them.
Like literally just head to head. We're not, because it's different. It's different.
Saying either one, head to win or head to head. Dude, either way, it'd be a psycho take. AB dominates both of them this year.
I don't think it would be a psycho take. I mean, Paul has almost won multiple tournaments this year.
Yeah, and then he takes 20th.
That's one time.
No, it happened twice. It just happened.
But like
Northwest.
Eagle was a top player until he get injured. He hasn't been the same since. Simon's never been that guy, right? Simon's the guy that pops off and wins sometimes, but then doesn't.
He had 5 wins like 2 or 3 years ago.
But I'm saying I think he had 4 wins. But I'm saying if you look at it, he's not a Ricky of where he's going to be.
That was post injury, to be fair, for him.
Top 10 machine. And then Calvin, that's been Calvin's MO since we've talked about him, is like, can he win? Like that. We've always talked about that with Calvin. So I don't know. I just think sometimes you can look at the age thing and make the excuse for people, but I just don't think it plays here.
AB is 5-2 against Paul this year, head to head.
Can I also add one more thing?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not dominating someone.
Brodie, to what you said earlier about like the younger guys and like some of like the like less like injuries that you pick up like as an athlete that kind of just are always there, like lingering injuries. My point about Paul and Eagle, and this is kind of personal to me because unless I don't know, I'm pretty sure at least Eagle and I'm pretty sure Paul, they tore their labrum, which is an injury I've had myself. And my point about Father Time is that as a younger athlete, if you tore your labrum at the age of 21, it's going to affect you. I mean, the recovery is at least a year, but it's going to affect you more so than Paul, who, granted, I don't know what kind of treatment Paul did, injecting stem cells and everything else. I had surgery, and I know Eagle had surgery. I don't know about Paul. Maybe it was a partial tear. He didn't need it, whatever. But Father Time affects the recovery and affects, I think, the ceiling. If you have that injury earlier on as a 20-year-old, your ceiling of recovery, I think, is higher than as Paul as a 31-year-old, for example. That's the point I was trying to make there.
Yeah. I mean, an old guy gets injured, it's definitely going to be worse.
My rebuttal to that is a 34-year-old male that is in peak condition is going to potentially recover faster than a 21-year-old male that doesn't do anything, that is completely out of shape. Those two people are going to, the 34-year-old will recover faster than the one that is 21. So what I'm saying, and obviously, yes, a 34 peak athlete getting injured, 21 peak athlete getting injured, the 21 is going to recover faster. I'm not debating that. All I'm saying is, I think what we're seeing, and we're seeing it from like people like Gannon, people like AB, they are actually starting to say, wait a second, we maybe need to get in the gym. We maybe need to start lifting weights. We maybe need to start actually taking care of our bodies the right way so that we can, A, hopefully not get injured, but B, also be at peak performance, be able to play for a very long time. I was just talking to Ezra the other day. He's actually dialing back some of his workouts because he feels like going into tournaments, he was lifting a little bit too soon going into tournaments. And so like it's on both sides, but it does seem like people are paying attention, or some people are paying attention now to their fitness, which you should, because you are doing an athletic sport and fitness should come into play. Especially if we start playing these bigger courses like you guys were mentioning, where you're not just throwing standstill putters off the tee.
Certainly.
AB is also 7-1 against Ricky this season.
Yeah,
I think that qualifies as dominant.
I think 7-1 qualifies. 5-2 is close. I wouldn't
say 5-2 is like, oh, he's had his number this year.
Is close. But like these other guys, Kyle, Ezra, Isaac.
Listen, I had no slight against the other guys. Just, when you come for Antonio, things
Paul might beat Kyle head to head. It's mighty close. They might be tied.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have put anybody else up in that argument. All right, final topic here, fan submission. This is a fun one. I haven't heard this one before, and I thought it was interesting. So, I kind of paraphrase these, but same general idea. So if the tour doesn't want to implement harsh cuts after 2 rounds, what do you think about the idea of set score-based cuts? So, for example, let's say the MVP Open has a cut of 15 over and worse after 2 rounds, and this is decided on before the tournament. So this would be aiming to just trim the bottom players that slow down the round without taking out half the field. You're just looking to get rid of those random names on the leaderboard that shouldn't probably be there in the first place. Would this be a compromise that could work in any capacity? Do you see any reason to try something like this, Jake?
I don't see it for disc golf quite yet. And, we'll take the PGA, for example, and what they use. When they use score-based cuts, it's really just because they want the best of the best up there competing. They want that stricter competition, which we can find at the disc golf level, and maybe we should try it out with some lower tier competitions. But with the higher tier, with the Pro Tour, I really don't think we're there quite yet. The reason I say that being those guys are going to get cut out anyway, either way. The lower tier players, the local players, maybe that happen to qualify for it. But what I like about the percentage-based cuts is that there's a lot of variability in disc golf that we're going to really need to talk about if we do the score-based cuts, how far in advance we set that cut. Are you walking onto the course and because it's now windy and rainy, you've been granted a few strokes? How is that really going to work? And that's why we really need to test it out at the lower levels. But I think the percentage-based cuts or the lines that we have right now are ones that just allow for players to crawl back, to make those comebacks and play better relative to the field rather than play better relative to the course. Right, or play better to expectations. I want to see players who are going out there beating the field, playing well against the field, not playing well against some sort of standard, because the field can really vary from week to week depending on conditions.
Yeah, fair points. It definitely would be interesting trying to come up with those numbers. It would have to be extreme. Brodie, what do you think about this idea?
I mean, I don't hate the idea. I think it's the way that you have it, or I guess the way that the fan has it worded here is actually kind of a little, and maybe they did take it from golf. From my knowledge of how golf uses it, and I believe the only tournament right now is looking to just check to see if there was any other tournament. The only tournament, from my knowledge, is the Masters that still actually uses this, and they use it in a different way. They don't use it in a way like this is saying of where you're trying to get rid of people. They use it in a way that if you're within 10 strokes of the lead, even though they do have a cut at 50, if you're within 10 strokes of the lead, you actually still stay and make the cut. So if there's 55 players within 10 strokes of the leader, they make the cut. So that would actually be the opposite. You're actually letting more people into the field versus the end. But I mean, if we wanted to do this way, I still don't really know why this would make sense. Like, I guess that's where someone would have to make the argument to me. Why is this better than making a line at a certain percentage based off of, how many people we want to play on the course, how fast we want rounds to be? I feel like you have to do all that information and know how many people can play on the weekend. And then you work backwards of, okay, the cut's at this versus this. You could potentially have a tournament where no one gets cut. And so I think someone would have to really fight on why the other way isn't better than this way.
Okay. Hunter, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think to Jake's point, the idea behind this, disc golf can be so affected by weather that it'd be very hard to set this line, because if you set the line too soon on certain courses, you might risk cutting more than if you would have just set a percentage cut, versus if you set the line at other courses, you might cut none of the field. So if the concern here is that the cut at the cash line is too harsh, then just lower the cut a little bit more. Make it instead of just the cut line, add in 10 more places, or do what Brodie is saying about the Masters. I love that, where it's like, okay, if you are within 12 strokes going into the last 2 rounds, you're going to play the final day, even if you're outside the cut line. Rarely would happen in disc golf, I think, but still, like, those type of ideas I feel like are better than just setting it beforehand. I feel like this would almost the only reason I think this could work in disc golf is because it's just different enough that I think it would allow the Pro Tour field to, like, allow players who were upset about the cut before be like, oh, this is a nice compromise. And then the Pro Tour just set the line to the exact same place it would have been anyways. And it'd be like, haha, we got you. You backed into our little trap. But realistically, if the actual concern here is, oh, we feel bad for the guy that could have made cash, that needs cash to pay for groceries next week, that was 1 stroke out before the cut, well, just add 20 spots, 10 spots beyond the cash line to the cut, where, yeah, you make it into the final few days and you're still battling for whether you're going to cash or not. I think that's a better solution than trying to figure out a score.
Okay, Moses, wrap it up for us. What do you think about this idea?
I have a fun little thought experiment, kind of showcasing what was said before. All right, Brodie, do you remember the 2022 Dynamic Discs Open? This was the first tournament that came to mind for me. You finished at 2 down.
Not.
You finished at 2 down, and you tied in the 3rd for the tournament.
Oh, that was the windy one, yeah.
Yeah. A tournament where 10 down took the win. The same tournament that the year prior, winning the tournament, was 42 under, and 3 under, which was your score, would have finished 77th.
Mm-hmm.
That is just showcasing how weather-dependent disc golf can be. And clearly those circumstances were so drastic. But what about a new course on tour, for example? What about the Kansas City Wide Open course? How are we setting a cut score there? Are we going off of the A tier that was played there the week before? I mean, I just think these are things to consider. And I think overall, this is an awful idea. The tour needs to step up and implement these harsh cuts that are necessary. I understand players, especially at the bottom of the field, are affected by it, but they need to improve their performance. If you're not good enough to make those cuts, maybe you're not good enough to necessarily play on tour. And I think those placement-based cut scores after 2 rounds are going to be more responsive to actual real-time play, and they're going to be more flexible to conditions and everything else as well. If pace of play is an issue, as we all know it is, then address card groupings or card sizes or anything like that, not the cut scores that we have here.
Yeah, the way I saw his idea was almost like, let's say they keep the cuts in a 4-round tournament the way they are, where it's after 3 rounds. Well, what if you were to throw in this cut after like 1 round, and it is literally only designed to target the bottom of the bottom? Like, if there are players who are legitimately, it's almost like an emergency clause cut, where it's like, if there are guys there, and I don't think players like this should be even let into the tournament. I think this problem is,
it's the marathon thing.
This almost would have been, it would have exactly like the time limit at the marathon.
They shut down the race at a certain point.
And this would have mattered more, I think, a few years ago when this was happening.
What was the like Lloyd Wema rule? Remember that?
Right. Yeah. I don't even remember.
When they implemented, you had to be because like he was like an 898 rated guy.
I think that's what this guy was getting at, where it was like, what if there was just this emergency cut where it's like, just in case we have 3 guys who just cannot be out there. It's like after 2 rounds or 1 round, they're gone. And then we play the normal cut. I do think, though, to Moses and a lot of your points, like deciding what that number is would be next to impossible. And it could end in a disaster if a tournament shapes out a certain way that they're not expecting. So I think logistically that would just be impossible.
It would be very funny if you like verbally set the cut and then like 20 guys are left and you like
knock out everybody.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to do payout after 2 rounds for the rest of the cash line.
Yeah,
I don't dislike Brodie, what you were saying about, what was it, the Masters that does it, where it's like within a certain number of strokes of the lead. I think that makes sense.
That works because it is such a brutal cut, because they actually go to 50 instead of most PGA events go to 72. Yeah. But that's just because the field at the Masters is much more limited. I think limited to 100. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense for that. I could see them doing that. I mean, again, if some of these majors want to try to differentiate from each other, that would be cool. Top Champions Cup is now the top, because it's not the wooded major anymore. It's now the top 100 players in the world, and 50 make the cut for the weekend. Like that, I could see that happening there. But yeah, I mean, there needs to be cuts because I mean, no one said it, but let's be real. FPO, there's a handful of people in FPO every tournament that are like,
the emergency cut could take out quite a bit of them.
20 over par after the first round. Like those people shouldn't. I get it. You're trying to advance. But it's like that. I'm sorry, that 20 over par person, they're never going to be a top professional. And I'll put my money on that.
He'll put his money on it.
Only thing I didn't bring up in mine too is the made cut didn't finish rule that they implemented. The PGA Tour, I think, has used a couple times where it's like, hey, on these larger fields where we need to cut it down quite a bit. And I think they do this, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they do this with score-based cuts, but they basically say if you made the cut, but we need to cut it down to 50 people or whatever it is, that 70 players made the cut. Those 20 made the cut, didn't finish, still take cash, but don't play the final 2 rounds.
I think they might have done away with that.
What that is?
Yeah, no, you're right. They might have done away with that, though, because I haven't seen that in a while.
I wrote made cut, didn't finish in my notes, and then I forgot how to explain it, so I didn't bring it up during my argument.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up, actually, while you guys are doing the final.
All right.
Yeah, I'll do that too because I didn't make the final.
Yeah, you do that too, Jake. You guys can we'll conference after on the
main cut didn't finish, so y'all are out of here.
All right, on to our final topic. Moses, would you like to go first or second?
I would like to go first.
All right, I'm still waiting for anybody to choose second. All right, here we go. Most would consider. What's that?
I did a few weeks ago.
Oh, never mind. It's been. Oh, that's right. That's right. You did. Don't cease. Never forget. All right, most would consider disc golf a budget-friendly alternative to golf. The price disparity is shockingly high, with the round being free for most disc golf rounds compared to the usual average of $40 to $50 to play most average golf courses for 18 holes. Discs can be found for just a few bucks in great condition, while a decent name brand driver will set you back hundreds. The point is, disc golf is nowhere remotely close to the price of golf. With that being said, could disc golf push their price boundary further and increase revenue within the sport while still maintaining most players due to this price disparity, or would they simply lose more players than it'd be worth? When does disc golf no longer become a budget-friendly activity? Moses, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the 2 costs that you brought up there are going to be discs and courses. I'm also going to talk a little bit about tournaments as well. I think discs/products in general, at the end of the day, we're throwing plastic discs. They're wildly different than golf clubs. I mean, how much innovation has happened in the past 20 years? We've gone from, catch discs to a wide rim driver and not much else there. We obviously have like gyro. A lot of companies don't obviously have that sort of thing. And comparing that to a golf club is just ridiculous with the amount of innovation that is there. If that increases and there are newer plastics and everything that come out that increase performance, then I'll bite my tongue. Even looking at like the Supreme Orbit Saki Bomb General that came out, what was that, last year before, it was like $30. Look at the pushback that they got on that. I mean, obviously people bought it, but at the same time, people were so upset about that thing. Number 2, courses. As long as there's going to be free-to-play courses, those park-style ones that I enjoy and everyone else does, I don't think this is ever really going to be a true issue. I play a ton of disc golf for free most of the time. I've only paid for maybe a handful of pay-to-play courses. And the standard of pay-to-play courses is not on the same level that it's not on a level that it should be to warrant a difference between paying and not. I think it's very rare ever worth it. I think a lot of great courses are free in general. And think about how many people play during like lunch breaks or after work for an hour, things like that. They're not going to want to pay for those things. My third topic is going to be tournaments. As someone that does play recreationally, I think the cost of tournaments are ridiculous. And maybe I'm just cheap. Maybe I'm just fresh out of college and don't have a ton of money. But paying $50 to $70 for a local tournament when I could play the course for free is ridiculous in my opinion. And I don't want, a free disc and $10 off the disc in the back of this guy's car. That's just not worth it to me. It's not there. So to me, like disc golf's biggest asset is going to be affordability, families, students, everybody else who can't afford traditional golf. So don't create that barrier that's there.
Okay. Yeah. Valid points all around. Hunter, do you think there's any space to push that barrier, or is there just no room at all for margin here?
Well, I think there's a lot of space to push it, but I think that Moses brought up a great point of when you push it all at once with no real reason is when the pushback comes, which is what the Saki Bomb General did, right? Like out of nowhere, we took a disc that would have retailed for about $24, right? Which we'll talk about how it got to that point in a second. And we out of nowhere said stock disc, $35, buy it. Basically, like retailers, you're paying like, I think it was like, I don't even know. It was basically the price of a normal disc. And shocker, it didn't sell well. There's a lot of pushback. But you know what hasn't received a lot of pushback and is actually selling decently well is the Supreme line itself, which is selling a premium plastic for pretty close to like $22 to $25 retail, which if you look back just a few years, that's a pretty steep increase. But what did they do? Well, they promised something different. There was this whole marketing push around the grip being different. They had to use different machines and different molds and so on and so forth to make the Royal line. They called it the Royal line. They talked about you'll feel the different. And all of a sudden, there's not really that much pushback, right? If I go to Peaksview Park, our local pitch and putt, and out of nowhere it's $25 to play around and nothing changed, I'm ticked off. If I go to Eagles Crossing, I'm not ticked off. Why? Because there's a value proposition there. I think that golf, a lot of times what we're overlooking as well is if I pay $40, well, I'm also out there for twice as long as I'm out at a disc golf course because disc golf's a faster game in a lot of cases too. They're also providing me with a golf cart, most likely included in that $40 to $50 fee. The grounds are super well maintained. There's, people coming up asking if I want to buy water. A lot of times there's water for free on the course. There's a lot of amenities that come with that. So there's a lot less pushback to that price. I think the same would be true in disc golf. So there's not room for all of a sudden I wake up tomorrow and Champion Plastic is $35 and they're asking for that. There is a lot of room for innovation and pushing the price higher because disc golf is so cheap and so affordable compared to everything else in our life that you can push it. You just have to have a reason to in order to avoid pushback. If you're just pushing it to push it, you're screwed.
It's a great point. I think if we blinked and tomorrow there was a course that was offering the amenities a golf course had, and let's say they charge half the price because it is half the time usually, even for a higher level disc golf course. I probably would pay that fee. I think you're right in the sense that I think they could bump that margin. It just has to happen slowly, and it would have to happen with some kind of promise. I think the biggest issue is the sport as we see it. As Moses explained, the discs we have are the same. The courses we have are pretty close. There are some exceptions, but the parks, they suffice. So there's no reason for anybody to think they would pay more money. So yeah, it's an interesting one because with golf being as expensive as it is, there is room for it still to be a budget friendly sport compared to golf, but also golf and disc golf don't have this highway subway system, direct translation. People might leave disc golf and not go to golf, but go to tennis or go to it doesn't have to be between the two. But yeah, good arguments overall. Moses, you're our winner today. Great show. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm in Miami. Feel like the GOAT LeBron. Need some chalk to throw up in the air. What can I say?
Yes. Brodie, Jake, our two rules specialists. Let's hear your report.
Jake, since you spit it out, do you want to correct yourself? Or do you?
I was close.
You were close.
What I had here, I just asked ChatGPT because I was feeling lazy. First cut after 36 holes, top 70 players plus tie advance to the next rounds. If 78 players or fewer make the cut, all continue playing. Now, with the MDF rule, after the next 18 holes, if more than 78 players make the cut, a second cut is applied after that round.
Yeah,
so
basically if there's a bunch
down to 70.
Yeah, basically if there's a bunch of ties that gets way more people in, they'll do another additional cut after the third, and that's where you get it. The other time you'll get it is if you actually are injured and withdraw. So if you make the last
time that happened.
It's tough because you got to have 7 or 8 guys. You got to have tons of ties at the end. Also, I would like to put this out because I know a lot of people listen to this and don't listen to Tour Life. This is my official challenge, calling out Connor. I want to see a Kelsey versus Connor ace challenge. It needs to happen, and I'm throwing down the gauntlet. $500 to the winner.
Oh,
where's the location?
When's it happening? Where?
We need to figure that out. It'll probably be in Lynchburg, would be my guess.
All right. If you come to Connor, he's going to accept it. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, $500. Yeah, we'll make an event out of it. That sounds electric. All right.
We might have to have a live audience for this one too.
It's getting better.
Might have to. Man, I can't say that. All right. Well, that was a great episode. A lot of fun. Sound off in the comments. Let us know what you thought, and also make sure to submit topics for our next episode. You can scan the QR code here on the screen. Get some more great topics like we had this episode, and we will see you next week.